Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening. No matter where you're watching us from around the globe, I say thank you for allowing us into your homes, most importantly, into your hearts. If you're watching us on the DBNA television network, a sincere thank you for your support. Continue to support the sponsors and the other outstanding shows and talent. If you're listening to us in podcast form, you got a bunch of old fellas here telling you to turn that knob up and let us put that flavor in your ear. Hey, we're going to have an outstanding time. I'm not even going to waste time on this introduction. I've got a lot of quality guys on this show. This is the CBA, the Continental Basketball Association's roundtable discussion. Got to thank Jason, my man, for helping set this up. This is something that has been in the works for 2 or 3 months. So, gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us. I'm going to go around. I'm going to have you introduce yourself and where you coached at in the CBA as I call you out. So first and foremost, thank you all for joining us. Coach Paul Mccaskey.
Well, I was a player coach, more coach than player, more player than coach with the Quad City Thunder, number 44. And I was a coach in Hartford for the Hellcats, later to be the Connecticut Pride.
Nice. Appreciate you. Coach Steve Hayes.
Yeah, I was a player in the CBA before I became a coach. So I played in Anchorage, Alaska in the CBA and was able to get a call up to the San Antonio Spurs doing that. And I also played for Bill Musselman down in Tampa Bay, Florida 1 year in the CBA. Got a call up by Philadelphia. So CBA was great for me as a player. And then as a coach, I coached as an assistant coach in
Okay, I'm on. I guess I'm on.
And then I was head coach of the Rockford Lightning, and then also for the Tri-City Chinook out in the Washington area, Kennewick, Richland, Pasco, Washington area.
Outstanding. Coach Charlie Rosen.
I coached in Savannah, in Rockford, Oklahoma City, and Albany. And I would guess that I'm the only one among us who played in the Eastern League.
Wow.
I'm older than the rest of you. Maybe Herb is older than me.
Oh, I'm probably older because I coached against you when you were a college player.
At CW Post. I remember
Correct.
that game.
Correct.
And somebody hit a basket at the buzzer to beat us.
Oh,
Really?
That's awesome. How about Coach Panaggio?
Well, I was at one place, the Quad City Thunder. I was there for 3 years as an assistant to my father, who is also a lifelong CBA guy. And then I coached, I was the head coach in Quad Cities for 9 years.
Wow. Welcome. Glad you could join us. Coach Clay Mosher.
Yeah, mine's probably a little different, Scott, because mine was both management and coaching. But I started out in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. I ended up in the league office for 3 years when it was in St. Louis, Missouri. Ended up in Idaho with the Idaho Stampede. Did a very short stint with the Great Lakes Storm, who were only around for about 3 years. I think they had previously been the Flint Fuse, I think, prior to that. But that'd be my 4 stops.
Wow. You've got some great stories. Appreciate you coming and joining us. And congratulations on the win you had the other night, my friend.
Yeah, thank you. Our guys have just kind of taken it over from us, and they got it rolling a little bit, just like they did a year ago. So it's been fun to be a part of.
And you've got some guys on your staff with CBA experience. You got Coach Keith Smart there with you, and you got Coach Muss.
Yeah, no doubt. Muss and Keith are both here. And then not that it was a CBA, but we've got a young kid that also coached in the G League. And then a year ago we had Earl Boykins here. So some of you may have either coached or coached against Earl.
You bet. Good stuff.
I've laid some money down to see if Charlie Rosen can get through this call without getting ejected. So we'll see what happens.
He's already told us he had more ejections and technicals than anybody in the league.
If
We'll see how it goes.
I hold an NCAA record. I got 4 technicals in an NCAA game, just to let you know. And I wasn't kicked out.
I love it. Coach Paul Woolpert.
Yeah, I was the assistant coach for Mo McCone in Yakima. Then I was Mo's assistant in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. Then became the head coach in Yakima. Then I became the head coach in Sioux Falls. And then I became the head coach again back in Yakima. So just between those two cities, spent about 10 or 11 years in the CBA.
Oh, good stuff. Glad you could join us, buddy. Good deal. Coach Herb Brown. Coach, how are you?
I'm doing fine now that I got on. I had a little trouble, but I finally made it, and I see that you got Dan Panaggio and Charlie Rosen, two guys that I know very well. And I coached with Dan in the NBA at Portland. I coached against him in the CBA. I coached against his father for many years. Father was a great coach. And I coached against Charlie, and when he was with Phil Jackson in Albany, and they didn't cheat at all. Never. Charlie never cheated.
Oh, I love it. Good deal. Let's see. Who else have we got on there with us? Coach Russ Bergman.
Hey, Scott, I was in Oklahoma City. I was in Boise, Idaho with the Stampede, and then I was in with the Great Lakes Storms in right outside of Flint, Michigan.
Outstanding, Coach. Glad you can join us. I can actually remember going to a Florida Beach Dogs game when Coach Musselman had Roy Jones Jr. as a strength and conditioning coach and a player playing against your Oklahoma City team there in Florida.
I tell you what, I do remember. I remember that boxer being on that team. Sometimes in the CBA, you got to do anything to get people to come and watch a game.
That's exactly right.
Or get some investment into the team with some cash.
There you go. That's exactly right.
True.
Got Coach Rick Barry joining us. Oh, you're on mute.
Oh, yeah, I don't know why you even have me on here as a coach and everything, but nice to talk and see you guys. Fort Wayne Fury.
Oh.
Fort Wayne Fury. Good to have. We had Coach Daleo on here with us. I don't know where we lost Coach. Oh, hang on, Coach. I got you. You're on my phone here right now, but we lost you. Okay, hold on. I sent you the link, and as soon as it comes through, I'll make sure that we admit you. Check your email for another link, my man. Yep. So join back in. All right, we got Coach Daleo going to join us as well. Fellas, appreciate your time, and as soon as we can get Coach Daleo back in, he was in the league before Isaiah Thomas and after Isaiah Thomas. So let's have some fun conversation. So guys, to start off, let's take it back. Who were some of the players that were called up to the NBA from your franchises?
Jeff Crompton. Okay.
Go ahead, Herb.
Jeff Crompton, and I had Billy Martin. And both guys were called up when we were in first place. And then right before the playoffs. And actually we had owners that didn't want to pay any money, so we couldn't really get guys to replace them. And we never got through the playoffs the way we should have. But Jeff Crompton was a great CBA player. And he got called up by the Cavs, and he had 2 10-day contracts, never got in a game. And Billy Martin was called up by the Knicks, and he played at Georgetown. Jeff was a player at North Carolina. But Billy Martin got called up by the Knicks and did really well. And he was another great player. And I think Billy was from the Cincinnati Slammers, and Jeff played for me in at the Puerto Rico Coquis.
Very good. Who else had some players called up?
Well, right before the championship series, I had Kenny Bannister called up. I used to call him Mr. Animal, and he sat on a bench with the Clippers. And Dominic Presley was called up, even though he had tendonitis and couldn't run at all. But Jerry Krause never checked in. And also David Wood went to Europe. So I lost 3 starters right before the finals and we got swept.
That's interesting. David Wood played for me in Spain at Baskonia, and he was a terrific player, really a terrific player.
Yeah, David played for about 8 NBA teams, I think. He moved around.
He played 9 years
right.
in the NBA.
Yeah.
That's right. Good stuff. Anybody else have anybody that was called up to the league?
Yeah, well, my most notable one probably was Donald Royal got called up, and he had a long career in the NBA after he got called up. He played almost about 10 years after that.
Good player. Good player.
And John Starks got called up. I was actually assistant coach in Cedar Rapids there, but he had a good career with the Knicks. Chris Childs was another one that got called up, and then I had some that got called up in 10 days. Everett Stevens, Marty Conley got called up by the Celtics. Dan Gottfried got picked up for a little bit.
I had in Hartford, I had Chris Gent and Kevin Ollie till Dan Panaggio stole them from me.
How a little tampering going on?
I don't think I ever had Kevin Ollie, and Chris Gent never played a game for me. I think there was some convoluted trade because Tate George wanted to go back to Connecticut, and Chris Gent was kind of the pawn in the trade. But I had a number of guys called up, but and I could name them off, but that really wasn't the story about the CBA, other than the fact that you'd lose them when you were rolling, and then you'd have to make adjustments and try to hang in there and continue to if you were winning, to continue to win. And that was always a testament to both great, I think, very good coaching, but also the players, the toughness of the players that remain, because they kind of had to, bond together and carry on. But I think one of the things that was really unique about the CBA was the characters, really the minor league characters. And I think every one of them, like I think Charlie just mentioned Kenny Bannister, but there was probably you could whatever Lampley. I forgot Lampley's first name, but Lampley would have been another one. And
Jim Lampley.
And what about the other guy there, Freddie Cofield, who was another incredible minor league player. But let me just throw my guy out there, Barry Mitchell, who I thought was absolutely as tough as nails, but never got a sniff of the NBA.
And he should have. He could score with the best of them. Lefty, I remember him. He gave us nightmares.
Yeah, he was just a little undersized. He's one of those guys you always say, if he was 6'8", he'd be in the NBA because he was a lefty that could score, like you said, Paul. And, it's just a great player, but didn't get the opportunity he probably should have got. Here, I'll throw out a name to you guys. Frederick Hughes.
Oh, yeah.
I got a story about Frederick Hughes. When he came to the Rockford Lightning, he introduced himself to the general manager as Al. He introduced himself to me as Fred, and he introduced himself to one of the players as Rick. That was our Frederick Hughes.
Well, I had him in Hartford, and in the CBA, he wore suits on the road and suits to all the games, really looked sharp. And both my sons in Hartford loved him because he wore his suits.
There you go. Good stuff right there. Guys, love the
Scott,
stories
I had
that
a
we're
pretty
hearing.
good one. I had a pretty good one named Bashan Leonard. Pat Riley called him up, and he never came back.
Well, I got two that I have two that played for me in the All-Star game that got called up in the CBA All-Star game. One was Michael Holton, who played in the league for a while, but the other one was John Drew. He got called up, and I don't know if you guys remember John Drew. He had a little trouble there.
He was with the Jazz for a while, and he had some trouble there. So.
Then he was the cement head.
I had
He
two
was a-
more guys that
He was a pretty good player, though. Hey,
Yeah.
Drew was a pretty good player.
Well,
I had Michael Holton in Tri-Cities afterwards, and then he went on to have a good coaching career afterwards. Moved over to Washington for a little bit, and then he coached for several years up in that area.
to go back to what Dan, Coach Panaggio mentioned about when you're rolling it, you lose your best players. Our 95 championship team here in Yakima, we lost Larry Robinson, Chucky Brown, and Eldridge Kastner.
Wow.
You know, obviously Chucky Brown had a 12-year career after that. Eldridge Kastner played 8 or 9 years, and Larry Robinson was on the championship team with Houston. So you lose your best ones, and then you got to try to figure out ways to win.
Was
Yes,
that
sir.
the year that Eldridge was
Also had- I'm
MVP,
sorry.
Cole?
What's that?
Was that the year that Eldridge was MVP?
Yes.
Yeah.
The owners
This is
never
great.
understood that, right? It's my
This is
owners. I had some called up. I lost 2 point guards right before the playoffs when I was in Rockford, Chris Child and Everett Stevens. And all of a sudden, why are you losing now? What's going on, coach?
Yeah, this is Rick Barry. I had Travis Williams, Tony Farmer, Melvin Newbern, and Jay Edwards all got a chance to play in the NBA.
Yeah, great guys right there. Good names.
I had Brad Wright and Pace Mannion. And one of the problems I'm sure we all had, you had guys called up and suddenly you have 2 or 3 new guys on the team. And they were there for one practice and you call a play and they didn't know what the hell you were talking about.
That's right.
Let's
That
let's talk about the king of all kings, and that is your boss there, Clay, Eric, and then the late great Bill Musselman had the little black book that had the name of any player in any city you could think of that he could call and get to play like the next day.
That's absolutely right. Eric Fernstein, a whole bunch of other guys would show up in the playoffs.
I don't know
Yeah,
anything
they
about
passed
that.
that.
Well,
He passed that book on to his son, who used it religiously.
I have no idea what you guys are talking about.
You're right.
Oh,
Hey, when you
The
mentioned
one
Brad
player I
Wright,
wanted to throw out that we got called up from Sioux Falls and he went on to have a great NBA career was Bobby Phills. And he's been gone for some time, but
Yeah.
it was amazing how many teams we had to, go out and have a burger and a beer with after games when they were there. Like, you guys remember the days where the officials, both teams, the dance team, the owners, the sponsors would all end up at the same sports bar in some city. And I can't tell you how many NBA teams we sat down with Bobby trying to convince him he was good enough to play. And by the time he passed away, he was a borderline all-star on some really good Charlotte Hornet teams.
Yeah.
good stuff. Welcome back, Coach Daleo. Sorry we lost you. Glad you could join us. We're talking about players that you coached that had NBA call-ups.
Oh, well, there's a lot, there's been a lot, because even when I was an assistant, there was more than, like when Scott and when you or I were in there, but, there were players. I mean, Richard Manning got called up and Jeff Grayer got called up, and boy, there's just so many, especially in the earlier days, even back before when I was the assistant, we just had so many. Gerald Matkins, half the bench or 3/4 of the bench either had a call up or a summer league or a vets camp. So that's how strong it was.
Yeah, just the level of play was so good.
Here's a call-up story. We're playing in Rapid City on Thanksgiving Day. The game was on ESPN, and it began at like 10 o'clock in the morning or something local time. And Pete Myers was on the team. I said, Pete, get a good night's sleep. These guys are going to be up and doing whatever they're doing. Get a good night's sleep. He had a great night's sleep. He had 11 steals in that game, and he got called up right after that game.
Oh, good stuff. Good stuff, guys. Well,
Scott, I'd like to mention somebody that was unbelievable great at replacing players that got called up. Jim Sleeper had to be the best player personnel guy in all the CBA. He was the best.
Is he around? Does anybody contacted him?
He's
Where is
still
he?
scouting in the. He's still scouting in the NBA.
He is- Oh,
Oh,
great.
Good stuff
Yeah,
right there. Thanks, Coach Russ.
Oh, Sleep would have fit beautifully in here. He was actually an MB or a CBA legend. He really was, because he had been. I think he started out with the old Maine Lumberjacks as an assistant or whatever. And I don't know how many years he spent in the league, but he was your assistant, Russ, and you won the championship. And I think the next year he came over to Quad Cities and we won the championship. So
that's right.
Sleep helped us, and basically, I think he brought a couple of year old players over with him.
Wow.
He knew where every player was in the world. We would try every luncheon we had before we had a game, we'd have the stump sleeper. And so anybody from the audience would give him a name and he could pull out and tell them what country they were playing or what NBA team or what CBA team they were with. He knew every player in the world and knew where they were at that time.
A walking encyclopedia of knowledge right there. What an asset to have on a staff, huh, fellas?
He was a terrific guy. Sleeper.
I love
Dan,
it.
I think Sleeper was actually with that team in Maine when kind of the most notorious, the first early notorious call-up was Billy Ray Bates. And I think Sleeper was with that team at that time.
Good stuff right there. Guys,
this is Rick. I needed to have him on mine because I had one that I had to get a big man to come in, and he told him not to come because he wouldn't get on a 5 o'clock in the morning flight, and I wanted to strangle him. I mean, it's like, and then he brought another guy in. That just got released from freaking prison.
Yeah, but could he play?
No, he was a clubhouse lawyer. He didn't even last a day.
Oh, there were a lot of those. Hey, Rick.
Oh, yeah.
There were a lot of those guys in the league.
Well, guys, something that I remember well about the CBA, because I actually got to coach a team. Of course, this was after Isaiah Thomas had the league. But in the CBA, you would get points for winning the quarter. How much as a coach did that help prepare you for like special situations, end of game situations? And how much would you coach using those, that point system for end of quarters?
I was interviewed before an ESPN game and they said, what do you think of the 7-point system? I said, it's terrible because you got to play your starters really at the end of every quarter. And so your rotations are all screwed up, okay? So they came back to me and says, no. We want to do this again and tell us why you love the 7-point system. I said, well, it's great. It makes 4 ball games. It's good for the fans. So that was the CBA. You said what you had to say.
Yeah, but Scott, you had a very good point, Scott. It did prepare you for special situations. It did prepare you for end of game situations. And I think of all the rules in the CBA, that was a terrific rule. I thought it was a great rule.
I truly believe it made me a far better coach. I remember coaching games against Coach Daleo, and we would go back and forth, and you had to be a good coach 4 different times per game. Yeah. You had to finish quarters. And I know it helped me further my career when I coached in the G League or overseas. It just made me that much more prepared.
Yeah, it hurt player development because you couldn't play guys all the way through. But as far as coaching for clock management down the stretch, astronomically huge as far as coach development.
Yep.
Huge. Especially like to lose a game 4-3 on the road was actually considered almost a win because, your points. So for player development, poor. Coach development, fantastic.
They came close, guys.
By 1 point each, you get nothing.
Yeah. Right. They came close to getting it right. I think what they should do is they should do 2 halves and make it a point for each half, because with a half, if you're way ahead, you get a chance to develop the other players because you can rest the other people. It's like tennis. You lose 6-0 in the first set. You got another set to play. And then if you can win that one, then you've got your third set. This way you can have a lot of overtime games and do 2 20-minute halves. I've talked about that forever, and they never paid any attention to anything I say, especially in the NBA. And but that would have, I think, really answered both of them. Would have had you be able to go ahead and do your coaching and learn there and have more excitement for some fans. But I think a 20-minute halves would have been a great thing to do. You wouldn't have had to wear the players out. You would have had a chance to develop some of your other guys and give them some minutes.
Yeah, I was
I thought the best thing about the quarter system. Go ahead. Sorry.
No, I was just going to say, I was assistant for Dick Hunsacker, who was came from Ball State, the college game. And I remember telling him, Coach, we got to win the quarters. We got to win the quarters. And he was like, no, we're going to win the game. We got to win the game. And about 10 years later, I ran into him here in Vegas in the summer league. He said, Mo, you're right. You got to win the quarters.
What about the 3-point overtime?
Oh, the sudden death?
The sudden death 3-point overtime. What about that?
Yeah.
I don't like anything. I don't like anything where one team doesn't have a chance to get the ball. Like, I can't even believe the NFL has the overtime thing that they have. That's the dumbest thing ever. If I was a coach,
On a coin flip. Oh,
You're 100% correct.
yeah, you got to give the other team a chance to get the damn ball. I mean, that's ridiculous.
Right.
Guy comes down, gets the tip or something, or you flip and and it's their time to get the ball. They make a 3-pointer and you lose.
That's right. It's
Yeah.
like the shootout in hockey. You know, it's the same thing, I think.
I thought one thing that was great about the 7-point or the quarter points was it kept the people there for the fourth quarter, where
Yeah.
normally they would leave early and go home.
Yeah. And as a coach, it was kept your players involved in the game, right? So you could motivate the players to go out and win the fourth quarter and not get swept if you lost the other 3 quarters, and that's something to play for all the time. Instead of saying, "No, it's a blowout." And
Not only that, it prepared them to finish games 4 times per game.
right.
They had to finish those quarters. That really prepared them for wherever they went after this.
Yeah. They had a
That's
lot of
true.
great merit to it, but it wasn't good for overall development of all the other players. But the thing is, just now that's not what it's about. I mean, my son's playing in the G League right now. I'm not a joke. I mean, that's only about the 2-way players. I mean, they don't give a crap about those other guys.
No, they don't.
yeah, good discussion right there, fellas. Of course, a lot of these teams are in small market areas, smaller cities. What were some of the creative gimmicks to get fans into the stands? I mean, did you bring in famous mascots, or did you give some kind of giveaways? What were some of those things that you remember? Of course, I know we all focus on the coaching, but what things did they do as a franchise to kind of, stimulate the economy a little bit?
Well, one thing was that they had a mid-court shot for $10,000. They took out an insurance policy, and that got guys into the stands. Another thing, and I did this in the when I coached in the WBA, which is the Western Basketball Association. They had 24 seconds to shoot at every timeout, and the guy got money if he made 3 shots in the 24 seconds. He had to rebound his own ball, had to shoot a layup, a foul shot, and a mid-court shot, and he got money.
How
Hey,
many-
you guys
they try to do
we're
anything.
talking about getting people in for the CBA. Hell, we tried to do that when I was first playing in the freaking NBA.
And the ABA, Rick, wait.
Yeah,
And
Jesus
the
Christ. I mean,
ABA.
hey, I was out selling season tickets in my rookie freaking year, and they had promotions that buy one and get tickets. I mean, they had all kinds of promotions to try to go and get people into the stands back in those days.
Didn't they
How
have
many
a
of you
thing
guys-
from McDonald's? A thing from McDonald's or Popeyes? If you scored a certain amount of points, everybody in the stands got a Popeye chit or a McDonald's chit. So, they would
They had
think
a
of
lot
any
of,
way they
Rick,
could
we
do it.
had that in
halftime
Houston.
entertainments that went around. There was a guy named Crazy George that did ball handling, and the Bud Light Daredevils. The Laker girls would come in.
The chicken?
and
The San Diego Chicken, yeah.
the San Diego Chicken, yeah, they would do that. We
That's
got
right.
Penny Gorillas. That was one of the things that was going on when I was coaching, was trying to bring in some halftime entertainment to get the fans to come out to the games.
Yeah,
the talk. Oh, go
thing-
ahead, Charlie.
Imagine the thing I ever saw. I was Phil's assistant in Albany, and it was a team in Was it Lexington in Kentucky? I think it was Lexington, and it was in the middle of this amazing snowstorm, like 2 feet of snow. So what they did, and the players, we were all there, and the refs were all there. So they put balloons in all the first two rows of all the seats. There were about 3 fans there. And during the game, one of the balloons popped, and 3 guys ducked to the floor.
One thing that we did to get people.
One of the things
We had the Dallas Cowboy cheerleaders come.
One of the things that we did.
13,000 people packed it. They packed it.
To see the Dallas Cowboy cheerleaders. That's a good
right.
marketing
Yep.
strategy right there.
That's one thing Yakima, we had a great general manager, Rich Austin. We brought in the Dallas Cowboy cheerleaders, the Laker girls, Myra Noodleman, Quick Change, the woman who rode the unicycle and flipped the bowls on her head. Every game he brought someone in, and our fans, a lot of our fans thought that was as important as basketball, because tried to make it a family affair, and he really did a great job of that.
And the trampoline, the guys used to bounce off the trampoline.
The Daredevils.
But like
Daredevils, yeah.
You had to coordinate. So in Rockford, you would talk to Quad Cities, you talk to Fort Wayne, and then you look at their dates. And then for the chicken, you would entice him for a cheaper amount when he could hit Rockford one night and then go to Fort Wayne 2 nights from there, and then travel and go to Quad Cities. So he'd make a trip through. It just wasn't, Yakima was a little different because they're way out there,
what we did was we got in between the Trailblazers and the Sonics.
Yeah.
So and they, hey, why not come to Yakima and do it? So Rich was really good at that.
Yeah. So
You guys,
those are all the perks and things you had to do.
Once again, we're talking about something that I can't even relate to, because when I first started playing, we had nothing at halftime.
Yeah.
In the NBA.
Right.
I mean, the world has changed dramatically, guys. And the biggest part is the 3 zeros that they forgot on my freaking contracts.
Oh, for sure.
Rick,
Let me just interject.
Rick, get over it. Listen, when I coached in the NBA, what I made on a season as a head coach at the Detroit Pistons, guys get for a quarter now for playing 1 quarter in a game. So you got to get over it. That's we were in that particular time, and we got what was the going rate, or what they thought was the going rate, and I'm thankful that I got a chance to coach in the NBA. Regardless what the salary was.
I made $18,000 in my first year, and thought I was as happy as a pig in slop. I couldn't believe somebody was actually paying me to play basketball.
I know. That's right. I mean, that's what it is. I mean, and God willing, you were a great player. And
Top 50.
He's still one of the best players ever. And even if they don't recognize you, they should, really.
Amen.
They got these 75 great players. They couldn't hold a candle to you.
But we're talking about coaching, so let's talk about coaching. One of my favorite is that one of the players came knocking on my door, and he says, "Coach," I said, "Yeah, what do you need?" And he said, I just wanted to come and talk to you. He says, "My agent said that one of the teams called you about me, and you didn't give me a very good rating." I said, "Of course I didn't." I said, "Why am I going to go ahead and tell him something about you?" I said, "You don't even spend 1 minute in the gym. You look like Baby Huey out there. You have no desire to go out and work out and get better." I said, "And yet you have all this freaking talent." I said, "So you either got to go ahead and get your head on straight, or you're not going to have a chance to make it." And so he left and went overseas and played. I saw him the next year down in LA when one of my sons was down there playing over at Loyola Marymount, and he was chiseled. He would look great. And I said, "By God," I said, "I guess you took my advice." And he wound up playing some in the NBA. He's a scout for the NBA right now. I'm not going to tell you his name, but really good guy. But it's amazing how these players have these inflated opinions about how good they are.
And Rick, you're the rare guy who's 3 generations of your family played in the NBA.
Yeah, no, it's pretty remarkable, can you guys tell me what do these people look for now in players? I mean, it's unbelievable that they don't look at what a guy does on the court as far as knowing the game. They get so freaking hung up on athleticism And it's mind numbing to me how many guys are playing on NBA rosters now who don't know really how to play.
Don't know how to play.
Wingspan, athleticism, and potential. That's what they pick these guys for. It's amazing.
Yeah, potential is good enough to get you beat it, but it seems like it's so analytics driven and it's not basketball driven because guys who are making those decisions never played the game. I mean, that's a whole nother can of worms we can open up there.
You know, I
Yo.
spoke to UB Brown a couple of weeks ago. He did a blurb for the Ray Scott book. He said when he was coaching back in the day, the NBA was like a chess game. And he said nowadays it's like checkers.
I like that.
Very well said. Very well said.
Every team.
Yeah, but the thing about it is that it's worse than that. It's like trying to play checkers, but not knowing how to play checkers either.
Hey, but part of the thing is the AAU. I mean, these kids, they don't learn how to win. All they get 4 games every weekend in different places in the different cities, really nice cities. And they don't learn how to win. They don't learn how to play. And then they get drafted because, like Rick said, they're great athletes. They
Right.
get drafted in the NBA. And then, most of them don't ever play and don't ever do anything in the NBA. They sit on the bench to get paid.
What's not
but they're
on the
not great
scouting?
players.
What I noticed that wasn't on when I was with the Mavericks for 5 years, what I noticed not on the scouting report was basketball IQ and heart. And those are 2 things that as a coach you look for. And that's not on any of their radars as big as it should be.
Analytics doesn't measure hard.
Amen.
Well, that's one thing
Analytics
that's
also
going on.
doesn't measure what I think the most important element of it. If I watch a kid 5 minutes, 10 minutes at the most, I can tell you whether I want him to play for me or not. And that's the natural feel for the game, which can never be taught.
Watch a kid in practice and you can tell.
Just watch
There
in
you
the
go.
game. You watch him in the game. You just see if he knows the game. Is he doing the right? Does he have a feel for the game? I mean, first time I saw LeBron James in high school, I was on TV. I said, "Oh my God, this guy's going to be an unbelievable player because he's like a man child." But he had a great feel for the game, which you could just see.
Yeah,
I mean-
good, well said, guys. Well said.
I mean, Clay, you're in the middle of this right now at Arkansas with the younger players and their mentality. Do you have any comments on players of today?
Yeah, I mean, Coach Brown's right about the AAU thing. It's, we spend our entire summer tracking those kids all over the place. And it's not just the amount of games, and 4 games a week. Weekend's pretty conservative. It's more like 8 to 10. They'll play 4 on Saturday and 4 on Sunday. And you watch them walk in with their McDonald's bags in between games, and there's no rest or recovery. And they just kind of trot them out there. And by the end of the summer, you're looking at those kids and they're just like, they look like, they just look like ghouls. They've just been playing and being there, they're, and who knows how many people are tugging at their purse strings if and when it happens. There's so many people involved now with these young kids, these prodigies. It's absolutely crazy. So, and the people that are coaching them are, they're not coaches necessarily. I mean, some of them are and some of them aren't, but a lot of them are just business people that are trying to make a buck, on someone else's labor. So, and the other thing that I will bring up, as long as you brought it up, Paul, and we don't have to talk about college basketball, but the transfer portal now, which is insane, is like the wild, wild west of the old CBA in terms of available players, and it's like a feeding frenzy for these dudes.
Free agency for student athletes.
It absolutely is. I mean, they've done away with the sit out year, and we've got Kentucky here on Saturday, and they got a kid. They've got numerous transfers, number one, but they've got a kid who, quite frankly, might be the NCAA College Player of the Year who transferred.
Yeah, good stuff there, Coach.
Devastating to one program and absolute boon to the other. So,
can I
Yeah, Coach Russ. Coach Russ has got a question here. Coach Russ, go ahead.
No, I don't have a question. I coached over in Europe 8 years, and I think that's why you see so many Europeans in the NBA today, is because they don't play AAU ball during the summer. They have the same coach all year round. They'll have like Hemke 1, 2, 3, and 4, and they'd bring the kids up with the same coaches. They get great fundamental training, and I think they're really doing it the right way over in Europe. And unfortunately, we invented the game, but they're doing a better job of it than we are.
Yeah, it's the
Well-
grassroots level coaching, because they are working on fundamentals and they're in that club system where they're going to get quality coaching, and they're not, just traveling, playing ball where they're not developing as players. So I appreciate you chiming on. I did 15 years overseas and was blessed to see a lot of great talent come over to the NBA. Getting back to
Scott,
the
can I say
CBA.
something, Scott? I want to
Yeah,
add something.
Go ahead, Coach.
Two things. One that Rick's hit on, kids got to know, hey, I has to have a basketball IQ. The other thing is you got to find out if a kid really wants to win. That's a big thing. And then the thing about overseas, when I went over there, I never even realized it, but you don't only practice in the evening, you practice during the morning. The morning you might have an hour and 15 minutes on simply fundamentals. And night, you have your 2-hour practice, and you do have a feeder system because they have different leagues. In my first year in Spain, I went to a club, Juventud in Badalona, Spain. They had a league for 6-year-olds, 6-year-olds, 8-year-olds, 10-year-olds, 12-year-olds, 16-year-olds, 18-year-olds, and then the big club. And
That's
it is
right.
a feeder system. And that's
because it was
that's
like the
how they
minis.
develop players.
Yeah, it was like the minis to the cadets to the scholars
Yep.
to the juniors. But then you also had relegation over there, which if you didn't compete at such a high level, your team got put down to the
Yeah.
second division, and then people competed to stay at the first division, which I always thought was very good in Europe.
Yeah, that's a very, very good.
Herb
That,
made
that's
important
something,
point.
that's a difficult thing.
An important point about guys wanting to win in the CBA. Too many guys were interested in their own numbers.
Yeah.
And piling up their numbers because they knew that to a great degree, NBA teams would call up guys with the big numbers. And that was a problem.
Yeah.
But the one thing, the CBA was better than the NBA in one aspect. You could trade guys in a minute.
Yeah.
There you go.
I actually enjoyed talking with all the coaches in the league. I learned a lot from them, just from the almost daily conversations you'd have about what players they have out there and what was going on. And Flip was one of the best knowledgeable ones that was coaching during that time before he went to the Timberwolves that he was at lacrosse that I really enjoyed with. But they used that term, I think you used it a little bit ago, Scott. He loved to describe players and say he was good enough to get you fired. And he talked about those players that looked great and the owners would love, but you couldn't win games with them.
I think we've all had those guys.
Hey, Charlie, let's talk about trades, because I saw some crazy stuff go on the court in the CBA, but I never saw anything crazier than the Chicago airport on a day when teams are traveling. There might be 5 or 6 teams in the airport at the same time. How many guys on this call traded one of your players while in the Chicago airport?
I traded a guy at halftime to the team that we were playing.
Yeah, I saw a guy give his boarding pass to a player on the other team because they traded him.
Charlie, didn't you make a trade with Bill at halftime?
Who would I make it with? I think it was Bibby. I traded, Dad, made a trade with your father, a player who shall not be named.
I'll name him.
Oh, come on, Charlie.
Sweatsuit. And I got the sweatsuit and it was way too small. It was like a size medium.
Oh God, good stuff, fellas.
Well, hey Charlie, well, let me just say this about Charlie's trade there. He's talking about, he traded a player for a sweatsuit. The guy's name was Marty Eggleston. And Charlie, you ripped us off on that trade. You got the better of that trade.
Yes, but the next time we played, he scored a couple of baskets that beat us. By the way, he's coaching somewhere and he just got his 100th career victory. Marty. Nice guy.
Good stuff. Well, let me ask you guys this. What was
a nice
what
kid,
was the
very
toughest
nice.
place to play? Where was the toughest place for you to travel and play in the CBA?
Yakima.
Phone booth.
Albany. Albany.
The phone
Because
booth.
at halftime at Albany, and Charlie, tell me if I'm wrong, our dressing room had a transom with no glass in it. So somebody used to stand outside and listen to our halftime talk. And also, when we practiced there, somebody was watching practice from the rafters. And that was Albany. I don't want to mention any names. Charlie, were you an assistant there?
I was an assistant and then a head coach, yes. The thing with Albany, the military, it was the military owned the place, and they used to oil port. And we knew where the real slippery spots were, but you could skate. You could skate there.
I tell you what, Dan, you'll bring it. Where I played in this jersey was Wharton Fieldhouse. And that was a high school floor where you could get a rebound and take 2 dribbles and shoot a 3-pointer on the other end. That's why I liked playing there when I was old.
Hey, can I tell a story? Can I tell one story? Paul's going to hate me to tell the story.
I know exactly what you're saying.
Paul was playing for. So Paul's playing for me. And we're playing my father, who's the head coach at that time at Rockford, and he's got a really loaded team. But he's at Wharton Fieldhouse, and we're just rolling. I mean, we're up 15, 18, 20 points, and Paul's out on the court, and somebody made a call against Paul, and Paul could get a little bit emotional, so he goes over to the scores table and takes his fist and pounds it on the scores table and yells out, "Fuck!" And I hope that and hits the scores table. All the lights in the building go out. All right. Now, in those days, they were mercury vapor lights, and so if they went out, it might take 15 to 20 minutes to get them back on. So after 15 to 20 minutes, the lights come back on. It's a different ball game. We can't throw the ball into the ocean, if we were standing at the edge of the pier. So they come back and they beat us. Let me finish this, Paul, then you could comment. All right.
Yes,
So at any rate, I'm absent because I lost to my father. I don't want to lose to my father. So we go to the locker room and I'm red hot. And I start in on Paul a little bit. And Paul says, "Are you telling me that I blew the fucking game?" And I thought for a second, I said, "Yeah, Paul, that's what I'm telling you. You blew the fucking game."
I remember that like it was yesterday because they kicked me out. I was so pissed off, and you came in and blamed me for the loss, and I didn't even play the second half.
Hey, Mo.
Here's a court that was tough to play. Dan, your dad was coaching the Rochester Zeniths.
Oh, yeah.
And had a hell of a team. But the court was not a wooden court. They had some kind of felt material laid down on the court. And it was outdoor ball bounce. It was crazy.
I played on that I was playing with the Anchorage Northern Knights, and we had our championship game against Rochester, and we were there for game 7, and it was played on that carpeted floor. And so weird because the ball was quiet when it would bounce. It just like and you couldn't get back to your crib.
It was crazy.
CBA championship game 7, and we're on a carpet. So.
Hey Mo, you gotta tell these guys, and only CBA guys that understand this, but tell them about the gymnasium where you had to decide if you were going to play uphill or downhill. Do you remember that in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania?
Oh, I remember that.
That's such shoddy ownership, and they literally just laid the wood floor on top of the dirt floor because it was called the Farm Show Arena. And basically, what they did in there was livestock shows. So I was in the league office at the time, and Mo was there. I think you were there for like their home opener, And I said, Mo, how's it, how's the arena look? They were supposed to make all these updates and everything. He goes, I put the ball down at midcourt before shoot around, and the ball rolled to the opposite end of the floor.
How about if you're in the middle of the playoffs and you're up 1 point and the lights go out, and then when the lights, you're down 2 points. And that actually happened.
How about Toronto?
Oh, I
where
guess
the
we're
court
all
was laid over an ice hockey rink.
Yes.
A lot of
Guys,
condensation there.
Can you hear us?
That was kind of strange. Guys were sitting on a bench with their coats on. And everything would melt. By the fourth quarter, there were puddles on the court.
I love it, guy. Hey, we've got about 7 more minutes in this segment. What were some of your fondest memories or your favorite memory of coaching in the CBA? So I want everybody to kind of chime off on that.
Well, I think the
Fired and
competition.
then getting rehired.
What? I'll tell you what, Charlie. I think the coaching against the coaches in the CBA. There were great coaches in the CBA. And, when you talk about Phil and you talk about Phil Jackson, you talk about George Carl, about Bill Musselman. I mean, they were great coaches. Dan Panaggio's brother. Rick, I wasn't in the league when you were in the league, but I'm sure you were a great coach because everybody told me you were a great coach. But there were great coaches in the CBA. And the competition was really, really difficult.
Yeah, here.
I think the biggest problem that exists is that for coaches, it's such bullshit that they don't give coaches authority. Let you pick the damn players that you want, and then you can be accountable for it. Meanwhile, these general managers give it chicken shit and say, make chicken salad out of it. I mean, it's unfreaking believable. Even my experience there was just horrendous with some of these people who are some of the owners and the general managers. I wanted to trade 2 of my all-star players and they wouldn't do it. And I had 2 other guys that they let go and they wound up going to the freaking NBA, and the other 2 guys screwed up the team. It's just, you give the coaches the authority to make, because now if you fire him and he didn't get the job, then, hey, those are his people. He deserves to be fired, but they're not his people. You give him junk. The whole thing is, it's not should be won and loss records. Is this team playing hard all the time? Are they playing good basketball? Are they improving? You can't go by wins and losses. That's the problem with the way that they analyze coaches today. And I think coaches get too much credit a lot of times, and they get way too much blame.
Well said.
Well, that's true. But the other thing is, the NBA doesn't recognize all the great coaches that are in the CBA. They recognize some. There's no doubt about it. George, Bill Musselman, Phil Jackson. But there are a lot of guys that they overlook, really overlook, and they don't give them the respect and the respect that they deserve. And like Rick says, you develop players, and if you develop players and you send them up and they get better, then you should be recognized. You should definitely be recognized. But that's the society that we live in.
Hey,
Scott,
can I just say something about Herb? Herb and I worked just to let you know how tough this guy's tough as nails. Herb and I were working together out in Portland, and after the season, Herb had hernia surgery. Do you remember that? I think you remember that.
I remember. I had 4 of those.
So Herb had his hernia surgery, and about 2 days later, if not the next day, he and I and my wife went hiking.
Oh,
incredible!
Wait, I can explain. Dan's right.
Difficult.
I had hernia surgery.
It's called
and
Dog
Dan and his wife
in the Columbia River Gorge. And Herb was a lot younger than Herb was, quite a bit older than I up that mountain.
Wow.
I'm older than
you
everybody.
froze up
Are
on
you
us a
kidding
little
me?
bit there, Coach Panaggio, but you were talking about his hernia surgery and how tough he was and still out there, doing it after multiple surgeries.
Well,
No, he
I went
climbed
on
a
this hike.
mountain. He
I
climbed a
climbed
mountain,
the
one of the
mountain with
toughest hikes in Oregon.
Wait,
Or
I got
actually
the
Washington.
I got a better story. I definitely have a better story. I had in preseason, I was working out Eric Barkley, and we were playing an exhibition game. And right before the exhibition game, Eric hit my shoulder when I was working out with him, and he tore my rotator cuff. I had to have an operation, and I came to practice the next day after the rotator cuff operation. And Mo Cheeks, the head coach, said to me, "Why did you come to practice today?" I said, "Mo, it's my job. I came here. Over the summer, you had the same operation, and you spent 3 weeks at the Beverly Wilshire in LA, and I just want to prove to you that I was tougher than you were."
I just remembered the most memorable thing that I ever saw in the NBA. I was Phil's assistant. I think it was the last game of the season we were playing in Puerto Rico. Herb was the coach. I think you had to win to make the playoffs, something like that. And we won.
Oh,
and at the end of the
can I
game,
finish, Scott?
I love
Well,
this. This is something that every coach who ever coached in the CBA wanted to do. He ran out on the court. I think it was Kenny Mauer. I'm not sure. Grabbed his
It was
lanyard,
Kenny Mauer.
started choking him. And Mauer's face.
No, Charlie, that's not
And the other referee didn't do anything. Nobody did anything. We just sat there and watched. It was the best thing I've ever seen. I wish I
Well,
could.
yeah, let me just expound on that a little bit. Kenny Mauer called me up. Kenny Mauer called me up when he arrived in Puerto Rico and he asked me to help him get a hotel, get a deal on a hotel. I picked him up at the airport, took him to a hotel, and then he reffed all 3 games in the 2 out of 3 series, right? In Puerto Rico, it was 3 out of 5 or something like that. In the first half, my assistant got a technical, and they called the technical on my assistant. In the second half, Clint Wheeler and Sam Worthen got into a fight or an argument. And and I went out and I tried to stop it. And Ken Mauer turned around and said, "You're out of here. That's your second technical." And he started to walk away. And I went to turn him around and I grabbed his lanyard. And I got 7 game suspension. Right? The next season, that was the end of the season. They gave me a 4. They took 4 games off of the suspension, but I couldn't coach the first 3 games. And we were in Cincinnati. I had a new job in Cincinnati. I brought in one of my college players to coach. I was upstairs in the Cincinnati Garden with a video feed for the game. And I was called down during the game to the owner, Gerald Robinson, and he would tell my assistant, the guy I brought in, Ed Miller, what I said. We won all 3 games. And because Drucker suspended me for 7 games. It was
Guys,
crazy.
that's good stuff. Hey, let me interject here for just a minute. We have to end segment 1, but if you guys can continue, let's continue to tell stories in part 2 if you can stay on with us. Is everybody good with that?
Sure.
I gotta go.
Yeah.
I can't do it. I'm sorry.
Okay.
But I really enjoyed it, Scott. I really enjoyed it. It's been great.
Oh,
And it
Coach,
was
it's been
great
great
seeing
to have
some
you,
of,
buddy. Great to have
it
you.
was great seeing some of these guys. Really.
Good to see you.
They're
Herb.
legends.
Great seeing you, Coach.
Thanks.
Good to see you,
Bye.
Coach.
Right, Herb.
See you, Herb.
Thank you.